so I get it right. And it's on the 25th of November. We've had one apologies for absence from Simon, and we've got lots of visitors. We haven't got a public forum, so we'll go straight into the thing. And shall we take declarations of interest as and when they arise? Is that okay with everyone? Okay, so the meeting this morning is to discuss the blue badge criteria. This was raised at an earlier people scrutiny meeting, so I'm hoping that it will be enlightening to the people that had sort of issues and questions about the scheme. But I'd really like to go round, because we can't be in person, so we're sort of meeting virtually. So if we can go round our Zoom meeting and just very brief introductions so that we get a sense of who's in the Zoom meeting. So I'll start with me. I'm Jackie Strong. I'm actually vice chair of the committee, but I'm standing in for Laura, who's got connectivity and laptop issues this morning. So was hoping to be here, but it's obviously been delayed. So can I pass across to the Caroline and Zoe, please, at St David's?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Caroline Roberts. I'm a clinical nurse specialist for St David's Hospice Care, and I visit patients in the community and support them through their journey.
And I'm Zoe. I'm one of the welfare rights advisors at St David's, so assisting with benefits, blue badges, etc.
Lovely, thank you. Councillor Strong, I'll go from sort of where I can see people. So Councillor Strong.
Hi, I'm Pete Strong, County Councillor for Roggett, standing in for Councillor Maria Stevens.
Councillor Powell.
Councillor Maureen Powell, County Councillor for Pennyvow Ward in Abergavenny, but I suppose I declare an interest because I do have a blue badge. Thank you.
Councillor Riley.
Hi, I'm Councillor Sue Riley. I am an elected member for Bulwark and Thornwell. I guess I do have to declare an interest also that I have a terminal illness and I have a blue badge, and Caroline is my specialist nurse.
Vanessa.
Thank you.
Sorry, thanks, Sue.
Good morning, everybody. My name is, I'm a councillor, a town councillor in Chepstow. My name is Vanessa Baddeley Potter, and I'm also the deputy mayor.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vanessa. Councillor Jones.
Sorry, I thought you said James.
Oh, sorry.
Hi, I'm Penny Jones, and I'm a councillor for Raglan Ward, and I'm a member of this committee.
Hazel, you're on my screen next, so would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Hazel. I've spoken to most of you. I'm sort of involved in setting up the meeting today, and I lead the scrutiny process.
Thank you, Hazel. Robert.
Morning, everyone. I'm Robert McGowan. I'm Scrutiny Policy Officer, so I assist Hazel, essentially.
Thank you, Robert. Ian.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Ian Saunders, Chief Officer for Customer, Culture and Wellbeing, and Cheryl, who you'll meet in a minute, is in my portfolio, so this sits with me as Chief Officer.
Thank you for that. Councillor Sandals.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Angela Sandals, Cabinet Member for Equalities and Engagement, and I've been asked to, to come along and sort of listen in and take part and see how everything's going. Thank you very much.
Councillor Edwards.
Good morning, everyone. Councillor Christopher Edwards for St King's Mark in Chepstow and a member of this committee.
Thank you very much. Councillor Butler.
Good morning, everyone. I'm County Councillor for Goitrevara, and I must also declare an interest. My husband is a recipient of the blue badge, and frankly, without it, I think the quality of our lives would be greatly diminished. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Thank you. Cheryl.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Cheryl Haskell. I manage the community hubs in the north of the county and also the contact centre, under which the Blue Badge scheme sits. So I manage the person there who administers blue badges.
Thank you, Cheryl. Josie?
Hi, yeah, my name's Josie. I work for the Macmillan Welfare Benefits team that covers the Aneurin Bevan Health Board, so which is obviously covers you guys, and we do a lot of blue badge applications for our patients.
Thank you for that. And last but not least, I can see Darren in the very last little corner.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Darren Williams. I'm the Ops Manager for Monmouthshire County Citizens Advice.
Thank you very much. So I think we'll move on to, I think, Cheryl, you've got a presentation for us, have you? Shall we start with that?
I do have a few slides, Chair, if I may. Let me just share
I think that
my
will start
screen.
off the discussion quite nicely then.
Yeah, I think so. Let me just
Okay.
share my screen. Okay, can you see that?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So this is a presentation that I put together previously, but it just picks up on some of the main points really. So the aim of this really is to just brief you in terms of what happens when we receive and process blue badges. How blue badges are funded. So our blue badges are funded via the Revenue Support Grant. We can't charge for blue badges on application. Welsh Government don't allow us to do that, but they do allow us to incur a fee of £10 per badge for an organisation badge or for a lost badge. Other than that, the cost of badges is all met through the Revenue Support Grant. Just a little bit there in terms of national fraud initiatives. So I've got the 2021 report as a header there, but actually I've just updated it this morning. So in 2022-23, the National Fraud Institution revoked 1,566 badges. Now, thankfully, the vast majority of badges are applied for and are given fairly and on the grounds of need. But obviously part of our job as well is to maintain the integrity of the blue badge scheme. So Welsh Government, local authorities work with the National Fraud Institution to ensure that fraud is identified and is kept to an absolute minimum. Of course, this has a cost as well to local authorities, so that come at an estimated cost last year of £1 million. And that's mainly from lost revenue in parking charges, but also time taken in administration of the blue badges as well. So when we look at eligibility for blue badges, all applications that we receive are assessed on the grounds of a person's ability to mobilise. We do get a lot of inquiries about people's age, and we understand that. I totally get it. You know, if someone comes in and they are elderly and as a result are becoming less independent, then obviously that's food for thought for us. But age and illness are not grounds on their own for application. So we have to look at ability to mobilise as a primary type of application. So there are several types of application. It's not straightforward. There are fast track applications, which are the special cases requested by hospices. We have discretionary applications, automatic, cognitive, and then there's also temporary impairment as well. Fast track applications submitted by hospices are given on the grounds of terminal illness. And the Blue Badge scheme in Wales guidance, which is the guidance that we follow, also advises that those applications should come with an SR1 form, which is the official form which is completed by the nurse specialists there. I'm sure that our colleagues on this call this morning will be very familiar with those. In most cases where we give a badge on the basis of terminal illness, it's advised that we award it for up to a year. But what we do there is when we assess it, if that person is going to be, it may be a terminal illness, but not terminal within the scope of a year. If that person is expected to live longer than a year, then we do advise that a discretionary application is completed where the person's not claiming PIP or DLA, because this then would give them the badge for longer than a year and up to 3 years. That's just easier for them really, because they don't then have to go through the ordeal of having to reapply when the year is up. So our discretionary applications, which are the most common type, we would be looking at permanent and substantial impairment, which causes inability to walk or difficulty in walking. That person then would have to provide evidence to us to substantiate that application. So that would be evidence. Unfortunately, Welsh Government don't permit us to accept evidence from a GP, but we do look for evidence from health specialists other than the GP. And we would also look at adaptations in the home, a person's medication, and also we look at fluctuating mobility as well. We do have a toolkit when we're assessing discretionary applications, and I do hate saying this to applicants actually, but it is scored on points, which seems not very humane, but there has to be a way to score these applications somehow, I suppose. So Welsh Government advised that we should be scoring at least 15 points for someone to be awarded a discretionary application badge. Then we do automatic applications. So these are probably the most straightforward, and these would be given to people who are on personal independence payments or disability living allowance. And for DLA, they'd have to be on the higher rate mobility component. And with PIP, we look at a score of 10 points or more for moving around and 8 points or more for planning and following a journey. Then there is the people who receive war pensioners mobility supplement, people who receive a benefit under the Armed Forces or Reserve Forces scheme, and people who are blind or severely impaired. For people who are blind or severely impaired, we usually look to see a CVI, which is a certificate of visual impairment, and to qualify, the person should be, there are different types. So sorry, there is a, for the visual impairment, there's partially sighted, and then there's a person who has none or limited sight. So we would be looking there to award on the basis of none or limited sight. We do cognitive applications, and that can be a number of things. So examples of diagnosis might be autism, Alzheimer's or dementia. It may be a stroke survivor, people with learning with a living disability, people with complex mental health or head injury. And again, we'd be looking for evidence from a paediatrician, a psychiatrist, psychologist, or a letter from the memory clinic to award that. But it isn't exhaustive as well. we're not confined by that. And again, we would look at all of the evidence that a person would present in order for us to be able to assess that. If we feel we're not able to assess applications because we don't have the clinical competence to do that, then we would be referring on to the Independent Assessment Service, who work on behalf of Welsh Government and who employ their professional expertise in order to give an assessment outcome for those people. There are temporary applications, so these would be awarded for no longer than 12 months, but they may be awarded for people, for example, who may be undertaking procedures such as hip replacement, knee replacement. They may have had an injury that is preventing their mobility. But again, it isn't exhaustive, and we'd be looking at each case on an individual basis. And then all applicants who may be refused a badge have a right to appeal. So the first line of appeal would be through myself as Blue Badge Manager. If still not satisfied, then we would be referring that application through to the Independent Assessment Service. And if the assessment service come back and they haven't awarded a badge, then there is a time period of 6 months before a person may reapply. And then I'd finally like to point people to this document, which is online and anyone can see via the gov.uk site. So this is the Blue Badge Scheme in Wales Guidance for Local Authorities, and that contains all of the advice and guidance under which we assess all applications. So that sums that up, Chair.
Thank you, Cheryl. That's actually covered some of the things that I was sort of thinking through, and I've learned a little bit this morning as well. Members, how are we going to proceed? Do we want to take members from the committee, or would we like to hear from other professionals to add to the debate? It's I'll take some, guidance from the group, really.
I'd like to hear a bit from the councillors first, perhaps.
Okay, well, I've got Councillor Edwards has raised his hand in the chat in the chat. So, Christopher, would you like to put your question?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I've got a number of questions, but I'll just ask a few generic ones for now, as I'm sure the answers will come forward during the debate anyway. Firstly, thank you to you, Cheryl, and the team for the work you do on this. I mean, issues no doubt arise with any administrative process. However, the experience from my residents have always been a positive one, even when things go wrong initially. It's always sorted out in most cases. According to the Welsh Government guidance, it should take no longer than 12 weeks for an application to be assessed. Is that still the case? Obviously, it depends on whether or not it comes under the fast track scheme or not. And what tends to be the main issues that delay the renewal of a permit for those applying? And have you been able to adapt the process to improve on this turnaround for approval or a decision in some way? Regarding the application as well, I've noticed I've reviewed a few local government authority websites, and I've noticed that not one is the same, not even remotely the same. And I've noticed that some some of the process to start the application is different from one to the other. For instance, one local authority may have a local application where they apply, and another local authority applies directly to the national government scheme. Which one is better? I don't expect you to answer that. Obviously, there's different experiences for both, but why is that the case?
There's a few points I think to pick up on in this. So thank you for firstly for complimenting the team on the work that they do, because they do a very challenging job actually in Blue Badge service. It's not easy. Our aim is never to make things more difficult for people. It's always to do the fair thing and the right thing, and to assess it fairly and to award appropriately. I've already touched on you know, I'm absolutely committed to upholding the integrity of the Blue Badge scheme, and I think it's absolutely correct that we do so. So that's the first point I'd make. It does have challenges in terms of how long it takes to assess a badge, and some applications, as you can understand, are far more straightforward than others. So if a person comes forward and they are applying for a badge on automatic grounds, and they have their PIP award or their DLA award that enables them to qualify, it's a very straightforward process, and those applications go through with very, very little issue at all. They just tend to go through. Some of the discretionary applications, as you can understand, we wait on the evidence being presented. So the sooner that evidence can come forward to us, the quicker we can assess those badges and get them out. The other thing to bear in mind is we're a tiny team. So I only have one Blue Badge administrator in my team, and that lady administers Blue Badges on behalf of all of our Monmouthshire residents and citizens. I have, since I've been in post, I came into post and assumed responsibility for Blue Badges in June 2023. And since that time, I trained up a further 3 people. So until then, we only did have one person in the contact centre. Since then, I've trained up 3 people in our community hubs who are able to assist with applications as well. But even so, you know, it's challenging. We are limited in resource and we can only do what we can do. I suppose the other thing to add to this is there's not a reapplication process. So all applications have to be seen from scratch. That's a Welsh Government thing. It's nothing to do with Monmouthshire. There is one application sort of process in terms of that. They don't do a shorter form for reapplications. So I guess I would say we try to get most of them out, Councillor Edwards, within you know, as quickly as we can. But where there are issues, it tends to be because we are waiting on additional evidence. We may be waiting as well on the independent assessment service, because some of these forms we will have forwarded to the independent assessors for a number of reasons, really. So they may have fallen a few points short of the 15 qualifying points, in which case I would say every time to err on the side of caution rather than to refuse a badge. Let the independent assessor make a call, because they might see something that we haven't. And also, I think, as some of you will have already experienced, I'm always around. So if there is a problem, you can always come to me and I will look at it and I'll cast my eye over it as well. This is a humane service, and each person applying will be assessed on the basis of their own individual needs. So we don't do a blanket process. We will look at each person individually in terms of their needs and assess accordingly.
Thank you. Councillor Edwards, has that covered your queries?
I think there was one more about the differences in local government authority websites,
Right.
in that
Okay.
some point to a local process and others point to the national government process. I was wondering
So,
which one is quicker. Are they different?
I can't answer for other local authorities. I can only answer for Monmouthshire, but we use the online digital service as a default option. But if people aren't able to do an online form, then we offer assistance with that on the phone or through all of our hubs. And the difficulty with the online form is that because the form is written by Department for Transport for England, they don't have a Wales specific form. Wales government have a few further questions that need to be asked before they can be satisfied that the full criteria will have been met. So the answer then in summary is we do digital by default. So we go to the gov.uk form first, then we ask those additional few questions if needs be, if the person hasn't supplied the information already. And it's a faster process because it means that we are not having to look through paper and then input it online ourselves. It goes straight onto the online form, and that pulls into another area online, which is called Manage Blue Badges, which just a few of us have access to, and we can then go in, assess it, and award or not, as the case may be.
Thank you.
Is that okay, Councillor Edwards? Yeah. Okay. Shall we move on to Councillor Butler then, please?
Thank you very much, Chair. My first, well, two questions. So the first one is, I've learned already that the specialist nurses have a special form, the SR1 form. Is that right? It's really about speed. You know, when somebody has a terminal diagnosis, sometimes it would be weeks, possibly even days, or it could be months or even years. But that person and their family need the blue badge straight away. So from that SR1 form being filled in, how quickly can the person and their family in that instance expect to receive it?
If we have an SR1, we can fast track it, so that can go through immediately.
Okay, thank you.
That's the answer to that, short and sweet.
And thank you, Cheryl, for the work you do. I don't know if I credited you then, because I know your department is, works flat out, and every case is important to you, and I know how good you are when you're speaking to people.
Thank you.
And that my second question really is, and it's something that I get from residents, and in fact, not just residents. When you're out and about, there is widespread belief that the scheme is abused, and that these badges are really easy to get, and that people see people parking in blue badge spaces and then leaping out of the car and running into the shop. Now, I know that not every disability is a visible disability, and they may be genuine blue badge users. They may be the person who's has the disability may be in the car, and it may be their driver that's popping into the shop. So the question really is quite finding it difficult to frame this question. What are we doing to where we see it? Can you report it if you think that about the scheme is being abused? If you know people, for example, you believe are abusing the scheme, how would you report that? Do we think that people are falsifying them, making fake blue badges? Is there any of that going on?
There is. Welsh Government have some evidence that blue badges can be forged and can be replicated. I did touch upon in my presentation how the National Fraud Initiative and investigators are working with Welsh Government to combat that. It is really, really difficult because as you will appreciate, I know every one of you on this call will appreciate the fact that scammers these days are so sophisticated in what they do. We rely very carefully on our partner organisations. So we work with Valtech, who constantly work on embedding into each badge different technologies to enable our parking enforcers to be able to spot where a badge is fake or not.
Yeah.
So we rely very much upon our parking enforcement to pick up on that. We do also work with neighbouring authorities on that. So I've had instances where, for instance, Newport Council have come back to me and said, we've taken this badge from a car that was parked in Newport, but it was issued in Monmouthshire. So we're going to send it back to you and you can act accordingly. We've had examples of that as well from Herefordshire Council. So we do have badges returned to us that are revoked by parking enforcement. And then I would write out to those people explaining that, you know, obviously blue badge fraud, that's really hard to say. Blue badge fraud is a bit of a tongue twister, is taken very seriously, and we will revoke badges where they are misused. So that's what we do about badges that are being misused out and about in our communities. It's a really difficult one though, and it's much the same as anything else. It's a constant battle to identify that. And then yes, people do come to us as well and say, I know so-and-so up the road who's got a blue badge, and there's nothing wrong with them. We all know that there are hidden disabilities, and I've already said as well earlier, mobility can fluctuate as well.
Yes.
You can be, you know, very well today. You can be absolutely dreadful tomorrow. So we take that into account as well, in the fluctuation of mobility. But we do work very closely with parking enforcement, Jan, to combat this where we can. If you do suspect anything, you can come to me always, and we'll treat that discreetly and confidentially and act on it accordingly.
Okay, thank you very much for that. I suppose at the end of the day, it's only as good as the parking enforcement, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
Okay, another area to think about.
Okay.
So we're not going there in this case.
I think that's that your answers to Jan's sort of queries was really useful, and I'm sure that we'll all, you know, bear in mind that, you know, if we do see fraud, that we can come to you. So thanks for that. I can see that Caroline and Zoe, I'm not sure which one of the St David's nurses have got their hands up, but I think they want to come in relation to Jan's query as well. So
so we just wanted to mention something a little bit about the fast track criteria with the SR1s. Now, unfortunately, we do find Monmouthshire the most difficult council at the moment with applying for fast track blue badges. And the reason for that is to have to submit an SR1 for the purpose of claiming a blue badge. Now, my role is to apply for benefits, and I work predominantly with SR1s. And the criteria for an SR1 is to apply for benefits. Now, we understand that an SR1 can help other areas like blue badges, but we do cover 4 different councils, and Monmouthshire is the only council that's actually asking to cite the SR1. So every other council is happy to say the nurse has said that that patient would meet SR1 criteria and meet an SR1, and take the nurse's word that actually they meet that criteria and that is enough to fast track a claim.
Or has an SR1 already in place. So, for example, if I'm filling in the blue badge form, just to tick in the box to say, yes, they've got an SR1, yes, they are in receipt of higher rate benefits, that's not sufficient, because Cheryl, as you know, you actually want to cite that SR1 form. There is personal information on those forms. There is obviously diagnosis, prognosis. It is, to my knowledge, that would be confidential, really, information for that patient, which, unless there's somebody who's clinically trained in your office, I'm not sure that would be necessary if a clinician such as myself or a GP
has actually already said that yes, there is one in place. That doesn't seem to be enough, and I just wondered why that was.
Okay. So I work in accordance with the Blue Badge scheme in Wales, as do all of the local authorities in Wales. And that clearly tells me that where we have an application from a hospice nurse on behalf of a patient who is diagnosed with a terminal illness, that it should be supported by SR1. Now, obviously, we deal with a lot of sensitive information and confidential information, and those SR1s are uploaded with that person's application form and are held confidentially on their file. We don't scrutinise any other information on there. We upload it to support the application, and it's in accordance with the guidance. So I don't know, and I did say this to Hazel before I come into this meeting today, I don't know what other local authorities are doing. All I know is that Monmouthshire work in accordance with the Blue Badge scheme in Wales, and anyone can view that. As I said in the presentation, it's on the gov.uk website. The guidance is very clear for anyone to see. I'm happy to discuss that further after having, I suppose, consulted some of my colleagues across Wales, which I've done before, and they've come forward and said they are also assessing in accordance with the Blue Badge scheme in Wales. So I'm just doing what I need to do fairly and in accordance with the guidance, I suppose.
I think we're not necessarily saying, we're not fast tracking or asking for applications to be fast tracked for patients who aren't SR1. They are SR1, but unfortunately, sometimes those SR1s are completed by consultants, or they're completed by GPs or Macmillan nurses, and we don't always have access to those, which means our nurses are then having to complete another SR1, even though they've got enough work visiting patients as well, for the sake of claiming a Blue Badge. Now, their benefits may already be in place and there's not a need for an SR1 other than the fact for the Blue Badge. So we're not necessarily asking for them to be fast tracked for all patients, but the nurse saying an SR1 has been completed by another professional, or that they've cited one, or one has been sent to the DWP, whether that's enough in itself, because the 4 of the boroughs that we cover, we do ask them to fast track, and we do say an SR1 has been completed, but they're not necessarily taking a copy of that SR1 or citing it for their records.
It seems to be enough. It seems to be enough that the nurse has said that it is in place, is what we're getting at.
And those local authorities are?
Newport, Caerphilly and Torfaen.
Okay.
I can see that Councillor Edwards has asked, are there any local authorities that ask for SR1? And Ian's got his hand up as well. So I guess it's sort of relevant to this part of the discussion. So Ian, do you want to just add anything?
Yeah, thanks. And I can see that obviously that information you've brought into this is something that we need to reflect on and review. Cheryl's obviously asked the question previously and had a different answer to how you've highlighted it. So we will take on board what's been discussed and what you've brought into the conversation. Clearly, we don't want to be a barrier to people getting quick and easy access to this thing.
That is the problem at the moment. They are taking longer because that Blue Badge application can't go in until our nurses have time to complete an SR1 as well. So it's taking longer, and like it's been brought up previously, those are the people that need them as soon as possible as well.
Yeah.
So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ian.
And it would never be my intention to make things more difficult for any applicant. So yeah, I do have colleagues across Wales who work with this. I will reflect on it, as Ian said. And also, it may be a conversation that I'll have to pick up with Welsh Government as well. But just before we sort of leave your point, what do they give you a form to tick off to just say, yeah, we've done that?
Yes, so when we send them to Newport, for example, we have a form that says fast track for special rules cases, and there's a box that says cited SR1.
Okay, that's great. I'll go back and
yeah,
I'll go back and ask some further questions about that, and if necessary, I'll amend our procedures.
Lovely, thank you very much.
I think that's really helpful, Cheryl and Ian too, because obviously we need to be keeping the person with that is, got the SR1 at the centre of all this. And actually, it just seems from the outside looking in, we don't want to duplicate any more sort of anxiety on their behalf for asking more questions or just putting barriers up in the way. We want it to be consistent, really.
We also don't want to fit people into boxes, do we? We want to acknowledge that everyone is individual and will have their own individual needs. So yeah, I'm happy to reflect on that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Councillor Jones, your question?
Yes, thank you. I'd just like to add to that. My initial question was about the consistency in Monmouthshire, allied to other local authorities. I think it is so important that the Gwent area are consistent. And if the other local authorities within that Gwent area, I don't care about England or anywhere else, if the other areas in that Gwent, other local authorities in that Gwent area are doing something different, then I really think, and Ian, I really take on board, and you, Cheryl, what you said, and I'm really pleased that it's going to be looked at. The health board, we work, I'm a member of the health board, and we work as a Gwent area, and this seems to be right outside that, and it's disadvantaging yourselves and all the staff of the hospices and everybody else, as well as the residents. And if one outcome of today is that, this can be sorted and there is some consistency, then I think it'll be very successful. However, I just got one, I think I misunderstood. So I just want some clarity, please. If you're diagnosed terminally ill and you are likely or given a diagnosis of living longer than a year, you said you apply for the discretionary, you advise for discretionary application because obviously there's no follow-on. But first of all, do you apply for the fast track initially, have that for a year, but apply for the discretionary to follow on after that?
No, what I would advise really is if that person's life expectancy is likely to be longer than a year, then I would advise that they would apply under discretionary rules because then they would be awarded a badge for 3 years. So it removes that anxiety of them having to reapply again in a year's time and go all through the rigmarole. It's better for the patient or the individual applying if we do it for 3 years and get it done and they've been awarded.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
I can see that Councillor Riley's got her hand up.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Cheryl. I'm sorry, my hand just won't work in the chat and it's not showing me as being me. There are a couple of things I wanted to ask about that, and I do apologise if some of it is anecdotal, but I am considered to be terminally ill, and it was not considered. There appears to be nothing anybody can do to say how long you are going to live for, but it was considered I might not live for more than 12 months, and I nearly have. However, so I was given the discretionary 1 year, and I feel in January I'll probably have to, I'm hoping I'll have to explain why I'm still alive. And yet the PIP application, people didn't look at that. Yeah. They said, we're gonna allocate it to you for 10 years to take some of the pressure off me. So I have PIP considered that I will not have to reapply for 10 years, but after 1 year, I will have to say I'm still alive for a blue badge. So that seems to be another anomaly. And the form that you send out for somebody to get their totting up points of 15, a local resident of mine only got 12. One of the reasons for that was he was extremely honest in his tick boxing. And the question was, do you get attendance allowance? To which he replied, no. I don't know how many points he lost for that, but he's too young for attendance allowance. Attendance allowance, you have to be 66 at the moment, and he was 57 or 58. So that sort of concerns me. I was a little bit, having looked back over the training video that we saw, which included the slides that you've just put up, it seemed to me to be very heavily focused on loss of revenue to the local authority. The revenue support grant, what I'd like to know is, what does it cover, and what is the majority of that revenue support grant used up for? Because obviously, if the Blue Badge scheme is part of that, what isn't being used for Blue Badge is being used for something else. So that was a concern to me. But the incidence of fraud or loss of revenue, when I spoke to a number of residents, and I hope Vanessa can back me up on this, because a lot of them have come to me from the community warm space at St. Christopher's, quite often from Vanessa. Many of those residents, I appreciate what Councillor Edwards has said, that he's always managed to get things sorted out, because I'm guessing there's a different demography. Some of those people who come through to me via Vanessa have no idea they've been turned down, and they just don't know what to do. And one of them has said to me this week that now, having got the Blue Badge, he first was turned down and he didn't know what to do about it. He now has said it literally changed his life for the better. But by being honest on things that perhaps weren't very clear, he got 12 points and needed 15. When I helped him with the form, he was well over the 15. So I just think that sometimes different demographies have different people not quite knowing what to do, if I can put it like that. I also wanted, I know you've talked about enforcement. I appreciate that there is a loss of revenue sometimes. Particular residents of mine have said it doesn't lose any money to the local authority, because if they don't have a Blue Badge, they simply can't go out. So they're not paying for it, but the local economy is suffering because they're not able to shop. And sometimes people are having to shop for them, which is also a cost to the local authority. So those things do bother me. But also in terms of enforcement, I have had a little look. What do we do when people are parking in those spaces without a Blue Badge? And I know that probably isn't your department, but I've had a little look around County Hall's Blue Badge spaces over the last couple of weeks. And there are a number of repeat offenders of people not displaying
so
blue
many.
badges who use those. One of whom I spoke to ask her. She's quite a prominent person in the local authority. I asked her, because we were having this meeting, had she had trouble getting a Blue Badge? And she replied she didn't have one. And I have made notes over the last couple of weeks of repeat offenders and people who use those. And I just wonder what I should do with that, or should we just be a little bit more careful at County Hall? And I think that'll do me. Thank you.
Okay. Right. So there's quite a lot in there to unpack, Sue. I'll try and go through it, and I hope I've made notes, but if not, please remind me. When you were awarded your badge for a year, was that before you got your PIP award? Or did you get your PIP award after? Because I'm just trying to understand, if you had a PIP award and you had 10 points for moving around or 8 points for planning and following a journey, then I would have advised for you to apply on the grounds of automatic, in which case you'd have been awarded a badge for 3 years. If you had already had a badge given for a year on the basis of your diagnosis, then we would let that badge run for the year because you've already been awarded it. So at which point, when that badge then was running out, we then would say, okay, so you've got PIP, so let's have a look at the criteria for that.
I think the applications were all made around the same time. So obviously, when the blue badge application was put in, the other outcomes weren't clear.
Okay.
A Macmillan buddy, I was told that it was very, very difficult in Monmouthshire, and I can only go by what I'm told. But I have a Macmillan buddy because I am terminally ill, who in Pembrokeshire, so that's outside of the Gwent area, said, that's ridiculous, you need a blue badge, and she intervened. And I have one now for 12 months, like I say, which I think expires in January. And although sometimes, as you say, I can feel quite mobile, there are days where every step I take in the morning is a step I can't take in the afternoon. And some days I am in incredible pain.
Absolutely. And so what I would say is, obviously I can't comment on individual cases because I don't know the basis upon which, I don't know why that was made difficult for you, and I would have to sit with you and sort of unpack that, I suppose. But ultimately, I would say if anyone is getting PIP and they are getting 10 points for moving around or 8 points for planning and following a journey, I would advise that they apply with their PIP award or the DLA, higher mobility component of DLA. I would advise that they apply on that because then the badge would be given for 3 years.
On that sort of note, I have just made an application for another resident for attendance allowance because they are very ill. And when we went through all the questions together, she said, you better hold off with the blue badge until we see what I get because I'm not going to get one. So would you suggest that we have to wait for that before we put the application in?
The automatic is an attendance allowance. Automatic is PIP or DLA.
Okay. Okay, thank
so
you.
It is an attendance allowance. And then, so to your point then about the applicant with the 12 points who scored 3 points short, it's not nice because, as I've already said, we don't want to be fitting people into boxes, but there has to be a scoring criteria. So in this particular instance, this person scored 3 points short. We had looked at the application, I believe, and it was my view that I didn't hold the clinical expertise to make a call on that, and that application was sent off to the independent assessors. Now, some of the feedback that we've received about the independent assessor form is that it is long and it is complex and it isn't a user-friendly form. That has been fed back to Welsh Government, and in fact I was in a meeting with them last week where once again I said, and I'm not the only one to say about that, several other local authorities in Wales have also said the form isn't very user-friendly. Unfortunately, it's not our form, it's been devised by the independent assessor service, but we have fed back that it isn't. Again, you know, I can take some feedback from this meeting and I can go back once again and put a little bit more pressure on, but that form is what it is for now, unfortunately. What I would say is that for me reinforces the importance of giving us all of the information and evidence that a person can, because obviously the more evidence that they can give us reduces the likelihood of us having to go to the assessment service anyway. So if a person can give us as much evidence as they can, and appreciating that in this particular instance, this gentleman was saying, he was being honest, wasn't he? And a lot of people are very proud as well. So a lot of people don't like saying, yes, I struggle, or yes, I need help, or yes, I've had to ask for adaptations to my home. And it's only when we sit with people and have a further conversation with them do we unpick some of that stuff as well. And I suppose that's the beauty of when people come into one of our hubs and do a form with us in person, it enables us to have a conversation about their situation and the form, rather than it being in black and white on a form given to us and us then having to go back and ask for more information. I appreciate that it's very difficult for people, and people are proud, and absolutely I get that. But we do need that evidence from people to enable us to assess that application. I think in the end that gentleman did have his blue badge, didn't he? Because I think I sat with you, Sue, and we were able to tease out some further information, which then enabled him to get the badge. But I can't emphasize enough the importance of providing that evidence right at the outset for us. When someone is turned down, they have a letter, so they are written to, and that letter will say, it will give them an overview of the points they scored and an indication of what we were looking for and an opportunity to appeal. So at that point, they are clear that they can appeal the decision, and they can come to me to do that. I'm sorry if when I gave when I went through that one-liner about cost, if that caused any offence. And absolutely, this is not about cost. However, it is a question that a lot of councillors ask as well. So that particular set of slides I did for a member briefing back last year. I've just briefly updated it for this session today, only because it raised some of the sort of high-end points in terms of application. But a lot of councillors do ask, what's the cost to the authority for badge misuse? And it is an important point, I suppose, when already someone has asked this morning about the importance of identifying misuse and fraud, and about, again, I know I keep saying it, but about protecting the integrity of the Blue Badge scheme, as I think anyone on this call would want me to, and would want the local authority to. And what do we do to monitor Blue Badge spaces? So in the community, we rely very much, as you'll know, on parking enforcement. And they monitor our car parks, but it's a much more difficult thing to monitor on private land. So County Hall would be private. That would be down to, I suppose, the caretaker of that site to be having a word with people and to just say, if you don't hold a blue badge, please don't park there. But in terms of enforcement, there would be nothing we can do about that because it's on private land.
Councillor Riley, do you want to come back? Or
No, that's really helpful. Thank you very much.
okay, I'm just wondering, we've got, I don't know whether, oh, we've still got Caroline here. I know we've got Darren. Is there anything, and Vanessa, is there anything that you'd quite like to add, either about appealing decisions or the whole sort of assessment process that you might want to add at this point?
Chair, I think Vanessa had her hand up.
That's okay.
I'm very sorry, Vanessa, I didn't see.
It's all right. I'm just going to follow up on Councillor Sue Riley and what she said, and thank you very much, Cheryl, for all the information that I've heard today. It's a little bit disturbing to feel that illness isn't one of the criteria, perhaps, and obviously I thought that it was. However, I'm really here just to say, for the person that we are talking about, who was going to come and make a statement himself, but withdrew at the last minute because of fear, and perhaps fear is the problem when filling in forms, and pride in giving too much away and too many details. But I do want to say that his life has actually been turned around by getting a blue badge. And there's, because of that, and I have referred other people to sue for other reasons, not just blue badge filling in, but DHSS. And it is very apparent that in, how can I say it, more vulnerable areas, people are not able to fill in these forms to come to any proper conclusion. And 8 out of 10 of them will find that they are a straightforward no, and that no is rather a strong tone to these people, and they back off immediately, which is really very sad indeed.
Okay, I'm sorry to hear that, Vanessa, but we will always help and assist with filling in forms in our hubs, always. I have even gone to people's houses where they've been particularly unwell. I've even gone out to people's homes and filled in a form with them in their own home. So there should be no barrier to completing an application form, because myself and my team will always go the extra mile, always, to ensure that that person can complete a form appropriately. And where a person has sent in a form and it hasn't met the required criteria, as I said, you can always come back to me, and I'm happy to look at those.
Thank you. I know that this particular person was turned down twice and was stressing for a very long time on how to reapply. And luckily, the third time was lucky. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vanessa. I see Darren's got his hand up. So, Darren?
Hello. One of the things that we're seeing an awful lot with failed applications is that clients don't understand the criteria and don't look at it before they make an application themselves, because they're looking at Mrs. Jones down the road has it, so why shouldn't I? So we're finding that there's a lot of claims that people make without talking to any partner agencies about that claim, but then that's going to come back as a negative because they just don't have, they're not ill enough to qualify for that. So I see that happening an awful lot. We're taking the time then to sit down with people, go through the criteria and make that more accessible for them. And that seems to be working quite a lot. I understand how busy you are there, Cheryl. I know you're doing an awful lot of good work, as everybody has said. But I think when you're looking at why do a lot of claims fail, it's because people don't understand the criteria of what is a blue badge and what's it for.
Yeah. And as I said, and this won't meet everyone's needs, I know, but the guidance is online. It's very difficult for people who can't access online, isn't it? I suppose that's the bottom line. But we are available to speak to in person at any of the community hubs, so they can come in and ask, and we will explain to them what the criteria is and how to go about applying should they feel that they meet that criteria. I'm happy to print off the guidance for anyone who needs to take it away and sort of muse over it and have a look. So again, we try and remove the barriers where we can, but everything that the organizations, partner organizations as well, needs to know is online.
Do you want to come back, Darren, or are you happy? Okay, thank you. I've got a slight...
I think Sue Riley's got a hand up.
So
again.
I'm really sorry, Jackie. I shouldn't. I just wanted to come back with one little thing, because I appreciate what you're saying there, Darren. But I think what I just wanted Caroline to confirm is they only get referred and they only work with terminally ill patients because they are hospice nurses. Is that fair to say, Caroline?
Yeah, it's very rarely that we have a patient that is referred to St David's that is not palliative. Very, very occasionally we might have a referral for someone who has commenced treatment for curative intent, and they need help with their symptom management, but that is very rare. The bulk of our patients are all palliative. Yeah.
Jackie, do you know that Chris has had his hand up for quite a long time?
I'm sorry.
Okay,
It's
all right.
it was because we were
Yeah.
I can see. So I'm going to call Chris back in now. Sorry, Chris. It was because the discussion went down that sort of route that anyway, please add to the discussion.
Thank you, Chair. No problem. I understand you were getting the others to come in first before I have a second go, if you like. I just got the two further questions, really. Going back to what Councillor Butler was saying earlier on, based on Cheryl's presentation about the possible abusing of the scheme. And I was wondering whether we have any Monmouthshire data on that. Perhaps not now at the moment, but perhaps you can send us some by email. I was just wondering what the main reasons were for revoking blue badges. In other words, shouldn't they have been given in the first place, or is it a case of they've had them too long? In other words, they were no longer eligible.
My understanding is it can be a variety of reasons. So it may be that the badge has expired. That's one reason. It could be that it's being used by someone else who the person knows. So it may be being misused by friends or family. So we have had a few instances where I'll give this as an example. So a wife has used her husband's badge and gone out without him being in the car. So that's another reason. There is also the other type of badge that I haven't gone into too much really, but it's organisational badges. So sometimes a care home or similar will apply for what's called an organisation blue badge, where they can use the blue badge, say on a minibus, for instance, to take a few people out. Now, what we always advise in the first instance is that it's always better if an individual uses their own badge, because you could be taking out potentially a bus full of people and none of them would qualify for a blue badge. So organisation blue badges are not our preferred route. But we do see instances for that very reason where organisation badges are misused. So an organisation will think, right, we've got an organisation blue badge. They may not even be doing it deliberately. It may be that they just haven't understood completely how they should be using it. They've popped down to the chemist to pick up a few prescriptions for some of the people in the care home, and they use the blue badge to park. So that wouldn't be permitted, in which case then it can be revoked, and we can seize the badge and take it back and not award another if we wanted to. That's never our preferred point. Our preferred point would always be to caution the individual and to say, right, we've revoked this. This was your badge. You have responsibility to look after it and to use it appropriately. If it's found to be being misused again, then we may revoke it. But that would be entirely down to parking enforcement. That's not my call. They would be out there monitoring use of that. I will try and get some data for you, some data for you though, Councillor Edwards, on that.
I was just wondering how much of a big problem it is or isn't in Monmouthshire.
I don't think it's a huge problem. I don't think it's a massive problem, but I think instances do occur where they do. Hopefully, they are dealt with quite quickly.
Okay, thanks. My second question was about the length of awarding the blue badge. I've noticed that there was a Senedd petition. I don't know when it was originally heard, but It was about making blue badge applications lifelong for individuals who have a lifelong diagnosis, and it was heard by the Senedd Petitions Committee in June this year. And I understand the outcome of that was that the committee considered the petition and agreed to write to the Local Government Association to ask them to raise the concerns highlighted by the petition and seek clarity about the delivery of the Blue Badge scheme. I'm not necessarily directing this question at you, Cheryl, but I was just wondering whether anybody online has any development on this. And my second part to this question was that under what circumstances, if any, is a badge awarded for life? Like, for instance, is it under the Armed Forces Compensation Scheme? Is it awarded for life in those cases?
No.
Thank you.
So a badge is awarded for a maximum of 3 years, and that is purely because the scheme would take into account changes in a person's individual circumstances. And to your first point, I was at a Welsh Government Blue Badge meeting last week, and there was no information about lifelong badges given there. So I think it may be a discussion that's happening in the background, but certainly no decisions have been made on it. And to be perfectly honest with you, it would be great for us because that would make things a whole lot easier and would enable us to really cut back the time on our processing.
Thank you.
That's Councillor Edwards, that's a really good point. Given that sort of PIP and sort of attendance allowance, there are lifetime awards, even though people are called back to be reassessed. It would stop. I mean, once somebody has, you know, you've got a child born with cerebral palsy, say, their mobility is impaired. It's not going to go away, is it?
And the award is indefinite. So if the award is indefinite, then the Blue Badge really should run alongside the indefinite award. So we would absolutely agree with that. That would be a real plus for us in terms of our assessment and cutting down time for people.
So I'm just asking the committee, is that something that we could sort of actually write to Welsh Government or take forward as part of, you know, our discussion this morning? I think it should.
It looks like it's still with the Local Government Association at the moment.
Yeah.
There was no update, so it's entirely up to you as to whether you want to write to the Welsh Government or the
Or maybe we
WLGA.
ask, yeah, or maybe we ask the cabinet member. I know that she's sort of had to go elsewhere, but perhaps we could take it up through our internal sort of organisation to just flag that up, because I think there's a couple of things that will be coming from this scrutiny meeting this morning. But really good point, and thanks for raising that. Okay, have I missed anybody else? I've got a long sort of thread of sort of in the chat bit about Jan has raised the question that attendance allowance is quite difficult to apply for, and the forms aren't very user friendly either. And Angela's put some really positive things about how her residents have experienced sort of applying for blue badges. Jan suggested that maybe there would be a scheme of putting sort of notes on cars that are placed at County Hall inappropriately, really. So anything else that anybody else wants to raise? Oh, sorry, Penny.
So it's okay. I just want to ask a question. You mentioned that 3 hubs were involved. You trained lots of staff in 3 different hubs, Cheryl. Just wondered where the hubs were, please. Abergavenny is obviously one.
Yeah, we've got staff trained in Chepstow, Abergavenny and Monmouth.
All right, thanks. Thank you.
So we've had a really full discussion. Is there anybody else that wants to speak that I've missed out? Cheryl, can I just ask a very quick question?
Yeah.
Somebody mentioned in passing that they've tried on a couple of occasions to get a blue badge and they've been turned down. Is it sort of 3 strikes and you can't ever apply again?
No, it
Well,
isn't. No.
I don't know where they've got that from then. So I can go back to them and say, but please, next time you go, get some sort of advice either from CAB or go into the hub for some support with it.
Or I'm happy to deal with those people as well, Jackie, on an individual basis, if that would help.
Lovely. Thank you, Cheryl. Okay. Caroline, did you want to add anything?
No, only just to sort of say thanks for listening, really, because obviously it has been quite difficult. And the discretionary form is quite extensive. It is about 16 pages long. So for those patients who are likely to live longer than 3 years but are still palliative, it's still an awful lot for them to get their heads around at a time when they're already emotionally very stretched. But I think all of that's been addressed. I just wanted to say thank you for including us this morning.
Yes. I think on behalf of the whole committee, I'd like to say a big thank you to sort of Darren, Caroline and Zoe, and Josie's already left, but actually being part of this discussion, I think it's been, and Cheryl, obviously, for your sort of main presentation and coming back to us. I think it was done in the spirit of getting the best for our residents and actually promoting the integrity of the scheme as well. So a big thank you for that. Hazel, it's really difficult being not part of the room. It's just Hazel's asked me if we want, as an action, a letter sent to Welsh Government about simplifying the form. I think it's actually, was that about attendance allowance forms? Can I just check that out?
Can I just add, attendance allowance is different to DLA and PIP.
Yeah.
So the automatic entitlement is via PIP or DLA. Attendance allowance is on the discretionary application, and it's something that we look at in terms of overall assessment of a discretionary application is different, okay? And the attendance allowance form as well, as with PIP and DLA, are DWP forms.
Yeah. I guess because I don't know, historically there wasn't a mobility component to attendance allowance, but if you were under sort of pensionable age, if it was DLA or PIP, mobility is part of that. Yeah. Okay.
Just coming in there from personal experience, my husband receives the attendance allowance at the higher level because at that time he did not have the ability to apply for PIP. Being over the age, because PIP ends at 66, is that correct?
Yeah.
Getting myself right here. So attendance allowance comes in at 2 levels. There's a lower level and a higher level. And my experience of filling in the higher level form is some time ago now, I have to say, was at 30 odd pages of the most repetitive answers, which I felt were really quite unnecessary. They could have been simplified. And you're absolutely right. It's a DWP form. It's not a Welsh Government form. So what influence we would have, I don't know.
No. Okay.
Okay. We do find, I think this might be helpful. We do find that Age Cymru are very, very helpful in supporting people to fill in the attendance allowance form. So where we, and actually we do recommend that quite a lot, where people are becoming unwell and frail, because it's a benefit that isn't means tested, which not a lot of people realise really. And if someone is entitled to it, then it's right that they should apply for it. But Age Cymru are fantastic with helping to fill in those forms. So that might be a bit of useful information for you to take away.
Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you for that. But yes, I agree. It is something that I encourage people to apply for, you know. Especially because they will have no other eligibility, but they're clearly struggling with managing the garden, or because of arthritis or whatever, and it's it is the benefit for them, and they're just not aware that they can apply for it. So thank you, Age Cymru. I usually refer them to CAB, by the way, but Age Cymru.
Yeah,
yeah.
I was just going to big up Darren and CAB, especially sort of locally in County, and I see that Darren's got his hand up, so I guess Darren.
Oh, it was just to add that one of the other bonuses of attendance allowance that's prominent right now is that it can increase your chances of getting pension credit, and especially for the winter fuel changes that are coming up. And we will be pushing that. We've got some road shows with Monmouthshire Council starting on the 9th of December to try and make a last push within Monmouthshire to try and make sure everybody is claiming pension credit to get that, and then attendance allowance or a disability benefit can be part of that as well.
Thank you, Darren. You'll be very welcome to come along to my Llanover and go to coffee mornings again. I think we need to do those again. Thank you very much.
More than happy. You just give me a shout.
I'll let you know.
Lovely. So anybody else with anything they want to add, or should we just do a brief summing up? See, we've got Angela back. Angela, did you want to add? I know that you had to pop out, but is there anything that you'd like to add to the discussion? We're just sort of bringing things together at the moment. We've had a really fruitful discussion. I think it's been really helpful. But is there anything that you would like to add? Angela? No.
Oops.
You're on mute.
Yeah, sorry, my other meeting just finished after 23 minutes, so I thought I'd drop in at the end. So I don't know, obviously, I have no idea what's been discussed, but I'm sure, I was in at the beginning and it was really interesting, and I take the points that were raised that, yeah, certainly we need to look into, what other local authorities are doing and how we can fall into line and make the system far less stressful. And standardize it really, as I put in my notes before I left. So sorry, so I don't know what I've missed. I'll read through the chat in a minute. Thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thank you. So can I just I'll just recap. If I've missed anything out, I'm sure Hazel will point me in the right direction. So we began to thinking about the inconsistencies, and I think that was a thread through most of the discussion about how we're doing as a Monmouthshire and how it sort of reflects to sort of the Gwent area as well. Councillor Edwards asked about how long it actually took on application, and we've learnt from obviously Cheryl that it's quicker if they haven't got to wait for outstanding information or information to back things up. Councillor Butler asked about sort of SRIs and fast tracked, and so did Sue Riley as well. And actually, I think we've had a really fruitful way of looking at that and how we as Monmouthshire can sort of maybe sort of fall into line with some of the other authorities to actually make it a less a harrow experience for the people that we're supporting, and actually making it easier for the professional staff that they haven't got to duplicate additional information as well. Cheryl talked about the challenges and some of the processes isn't straightforward, and I guess that reflects that we're dealing with individuals, and actually it is based on the evidence and Welsh Government guidance. We also flagged up that there isn't a reapplication process, and maybe that means that people have got to fill out the same forms again and again and again to actually maybe there's a way of actually sort of streamlining the process, but obviously it's based on Welsh guidance criteria as well. Quite a lot of the discussion was around sort of abuses and fraud, and actually if we are talking about the integrity of the scheme, then we also need to be aware that some frauds do happen, although it seems to be it seems to be minor, but it's still there. We've looked at sort of the appeals process, failed applications, and how people can get support from the various agencies on the core to actually help in that. Councillor Edwards asked about some of the data about misuse, and I think Cheryl was going to get back to us on that. And also one of the final questions was about you know, not just for the SRI rules about it being a year and then having to reapply, but also if you've got, you know, a permanent condition from birth, or, you know, from a condition that happens when you're an adult, about a lifetime award. And I think that we wondered whether the cabinet member, and or maybe we can talk to you afterwards about how we, you know, add our voice to the discussion about that, because it would seem that if you've got a child that's born with cerebral palsy, they've having to reapply every 3 years for a blue badge just seems to be you know, sort of time consuming and anxiety provoking, and just, you know, it could be a better use of everyone's time and to support that those people as well. Have I missed anything out? Hazel?
No, Chair, I think you kept very extensive notes there, and well done.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So can I thank everybody who's contributed to this, to Cheryl, to obviously Caroline and Zoe, to Josie that's gone, to Darren for joining us as well. Really, really appreciate your time, and also the work that you do as organisations to make our residents, you know, feel safe and supported. And we will flag up the roadshow about the pension credit sort of things that you're doing, and actually trying to get people to claim the benefits that they're all entitled to. So thank you for that. Okay, we're going to move on now to the rest of the agenda. So if outside agencies want to leave, they can do so. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so I see from the agenda we're now moving on to the forward working programme list. Is that right, Hazel?
Yeah, just to highlight, Chair, the forward work programme that's published appears to be empty for the next 2 months, but since the agenda was published, we've had some items through which will it'll take up those meetings, so don't worry about that. So January, we've got home search policy amendments. We asked for that to come back to us, and we'll also table the disability confident pledge, which we deferred from today. I think we'll also have some budget scrutiny and proposals for you to consider as well. So you're not going to be left with an empty programme. Also, the planning and provision of school places, that needs to come back to us. That was going to come before Christmas, but that's delayed. So we'll schedule that for the new year as well.
Lovely. And the cabinet and council planner, do we need to discuss that, or?
No, that's for noting,
just
Chair.
for noting.
If anybody sees anything in there that they see coming forward and they'd like to have a discussion with the report author, it's listed there who the author is. They can go and do that. If there's something they want to bring forward for scrutiny, they can.
Okay, and then it's just confirming the minutes of the following committees. The 17th of July. Have we got, oh, hang on. I can see Penny's got a hand up. Sorry.
Oh, sorry, not about that. So if you want to finish, because I wasn't there. So if you want to finish off there, and I'll just come back and comment afterwards, please.
Okay, so have we got a proposer and a seconder for the minutes of the 17th of July? Who was there? Deathly silence.
So I wasn't on the committee at that time, I don't believe.
Yeah, and I wasn't, I don't think.
Maureen, were you there? You're on mute.
You're mute, Maureen.
Sorry, I'm pretty certain I was there. I don't miss many meetings, so
I was there. I'm happy to.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got a proposer and a seconder for Councillor Powell and Councillor Strong. The other one was the 23rd of July.
Oh yes, I was at one of them, and I can't remember which. I can't remember which. Sorry, so I can't propose.
No, I'll propose that one. Yes.
Yeah, I was at that one as well, I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the special meeting of on the 19th of September. Oops.
Yes, we were
Yeah.
we were both.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think
I
we
think
were both
I
there,
think
weren't
we've
we, Peter?
sorted
Yeah,
that out.
you're going to use us again.
Yeah. Penny, did you want to say
Yeah.
something?
Could I just make a comment about parking at the county hall, please? One, I'd like to say that since it was first built, that car park, we felt there were far too many spaces allocated for disability, out of proportion with even big car parks. Absolutely happy to have a huge area, but not all, because there's a grey area here. Some people who have not got blue badges and are not likely to have blue badges have illness or a temporary situation where they can't walk, they can't do something, or it could be a back injury, it could be something that's temporary. And I really feel, and I've spoken about this before, there should be a few spaces left for those people who genuinely cannot walk from the car park but still are keen to participate in council work. So whilst I fully support the disability, I still think a couple of spaces should be left for those people who have a transient condition. Okay, thanks.
I
I
agree
think
with
you're
that.
right, Penny. I think you're right. I think there needs to be some flexibility, because as you say, you could have an operation or something, and sort of struggling for a few weeks or months or whatever, but wouldn't actually, So, Sue.
Yes, can I just come in there, because there is the sort of hatched area, the sort of drop-off point, isn't there? If that could be
if you bought your car, Jan.
Sorry?
If you bought your car for a meeting, that you can't park there.
No,
that's going to drop things
Could we
off.
have? So you're talking for a longer meeting?
Yes. Yeah. I'm talking about participating in meetings.
Yeah. It's just
I
the
would agree
logistics
with-
of this are very difficult, aren't they?
Yeah.
I would agree with Penny too, that there are an awful lot of yellow badges. I was just being a bit pernickety because I am there was so much emphasis on fraud, and so I've also, during sort of asking people about all of these, about the blue badges, it was also raised with me, and I think this is also relevant for County Hall, is that it was raised about Chepstow, to be honest. There aren't any mother and child spaces.
Exactly. Yes.
So if you want to rush in with a child, that would be useful. It's
absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Even if
So
it's just one space, it's something. Yeah.
I'm not sure, and maybe Hazel will sort of enlighten us as to how we can take that forward. Do we take it forward to Angela?
I was just about to put in the chat, Chair, that I think this is something that you could take to Councillor Sandals and she could discuss it at the Democratic Services Committee. That would be the right place.
Great.
Thank you for
thank you very much.
Yeah, lovely.
We do need to sort that area out, I think.
Yeah, I think it's
good idea.
It's okay. So I think the last thing that I've got to say is thank you ever so much for attending. I think it's been a really fruitful, enlightening discussion. And our next meeting is on Tuesday, the 21st of January at 10 o'clock in the morning. So thanks everybody, and thank you for a really sort of interesting meeting this morning. So bye, and have a lovely day. And I did try. I did miss out a couple of people. And just keep sort of dry and warm and well. Okay.
And happy Christmas.
Happy
We've got a full council meeting before Christmas.
Yeah.
We're going to see each other then.
All right. See you all soon.
Okay. Bye.
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 Thanks, everyone.
Bye.